Hey everyone. Well, it's kind of a slow drive to work right now. I'm stuck in some traffic, so just thought I'd chat a little bit. One thing I wanted to touch on was the difference between stationary house life and RV life. A lot of people see, for me, this is normality because I've done this on and off for over 15 years. So to me, living in a motorhome is completely normal, like the day-to-day aspect of it. And I think for a lot of people, they seem to think it's completely different. I'm kind of miffed sometimes. Sorry if I come off rude sometimes when somebody asks me a question that I kind of consider stupid, because to me, it's no different than living in a house. Some of the questions, like, just to give you an example, like people are, well, how do you cook? Well, I cook in my kitchen. I use my stove and I use my sink, just like you would at home. Or sometimes people will ask, well, how do you use the toilet? Well, I use the toilet. I use my toilet. How do you shower? I use my shower. I go in there and I turn on the water. So there's a lot of things that are no different at all than a regular apartment or house life. As far as cleaning, it's the same as a house. It's just smaller. You use less cleaning supplies. It's a little cheaper, I guess. How do I keep warm? Well, I use my heater. I mean, it's a motor home. Motor homes have appliances, including heaters. In my case, I put in, as you all know, I put in the marine fireplace, so I've got an even better heater. But how do you keep cool? Well, I've got an air conditioner if it ever came down to it. I really don't use that much. I prefer just using the roof fan and windows open on a nice summer day. But I mean, just so many things are the same as living in an apartment, so I don't see it as being any difference. When people ask questions like that, I'm like, well, how do you do it? How do you cook dinner? How do you use the washroom? Because it's no different in a motorhome. The real difference with RV living from house living is the maintenance side of things. For example, in a house, you just pay somebody and your electricity is on and your water works all the time. You just turn on a tap. Well, in a motorhome, you have to take care of that stuff yourself. You have to figure out how to generate your own power. In my case, I have a generator and I have solar panels on the roof, so I have a solar system. And you have to conserve power. Same thing with water. You've got to fill up your water and watch your water levels all the time. You have to make sure your tanks don't get full. You don't want to be in the shower and all of a sudden it starts filling up on the floor because you forgot to dump your tanks, you know. That's happened to me a couple times. That's how I know it's time to dump my tanks. There are meters in here you can read, so you can tell when your tanks are getting empty or when they're full. As far as day-to-day life goes, like actually using things and living and cooking and bathing, like none of that is any different than living in a house. So, I mean, those kind of questions just kind of miff me. It's just, again, maintaining the systems are different. I generate my own power, I fill up my own water, and things like that. You really learn how to conserve when you're living in a motorhome, same as a boat. I'd say even more so on a boat, because you can't just drive up to a friend's house with a hose or a gas station to fill up your water. If you're out on the ocean somewhere and you run out of water, it's more of a big deal. Same with running out of things like propane or diesel or whatever. But other than that, I mean, the fact that my house is built on a rubber foundation instead of a concrete foundation, there's really not much of a difference. So when I get questions about day-to-day life, my response is generally, same as you, buddy. It's really no different than you. There's a few other little differences, like I'm taking my house with me to work right now, so I don't have to worry about having a second vehicle, and that's why I wanted a Class B, so I could drive it with me everywhere I went. Another thing too is the security question. People say, well, do you ever feel unsafe being on the street? Do you ever feel like you're not as secure as when you lived in a house or apartment? And my answer to that is generally no. I actually feel more secure. I'm more safe in this situation because I can control where I am and where I park, and I rarely don't have my house within sight of me, no matter where I go, including to work. Right now, I'm driving to work. Sometimes I even stay at work, or I stay within a couple blocks of work, so I can see my house at work. So that's a lot safer than the average person who leaves their house or apartment, gets in their car and drives to work, sometimes miles away. Well, they're just leaving their place open to break-ins all day when they're not home. So to me, that's less safe. Plus being stationary. If you're gonna go out somewhere or whatever, your place is vulnerable when you're not home, and that's usually when break-ins happen, right? Even when I go downtown, I go out to the clubs or to the bars. Well, my house is right there. Another advantage. You don't have to worry about driving home if you've been drinking. Yeah, that's one of the biggest advantages right there. And security, I mean, it's like a lot of people live in basement suites or houses, or their windows are exposed to the streets and sidewalks. People can smash the windows and get in. Well, how is that any different in a motorhome? I do have film on these windows, which makes it hard to break in, a shatterproof film, but that's not for my day-to-day living. That's more for, well, I'm going to do some traveling. I'm going to be going to other areas and other cities and things that I don't know. I don't know where the safe areas are, where the sketchy areas are, In that case, yeah, you got to be a little more on top of things, and more aware of your surroundings and whatnot. But day-to-day life, guys, an RV is not much different. It's just a different type of home, but it still has all the systems that a home has for the most part. And I get home and turn on my heat, cook some dinner, make a cup of tea. I boil some water on the stove and make tea, just like you do at home. So it's not really any different. So the questions about that sort of stuff, just they kind of, I guess people don't realize how similar it is. The people that haven't done this before. But again, I if you have a gas stove at home, well, you're paying a gas bill every month for that. In my case, I physically have to go and get my propane filled up. Do that once or twice a month, or in the winter maybe a little more often because I'm running a lot of heat. But it's the same thing. I'm paying a gas bill and filling up my propane tank, and that's how my gas stove works. And it happens to be how the fridge works and my hot water works as well, and my heater. So there's not, again, using things is not much different. Maintaining them is where the difference is. Whereas you're in a house or an apartment, you're just paying a bill and it just magically works. In a motorhome, you have to be on top of things to make sure that you have a regular schedule going, or you're not going to run out of propane, you're not going to run out of water, and to make sure your tanks don't fill up before you have a chance to go and empty them. So I have a weekly routine where I go and I fill up my water tank and I dump my holding tanks, my gray and black tanks, and for the most part I keep on top of it pretty well. Once in a while, again, like I said, I'll be having a shower and the basin starts to fill up with water, and I know I went a day too long. I should have dumped that water, but it's not a big deal. I guess it'd be kind of funny for a first-time motorhome dweller who hasn't had been in that situation to discover these things. But you see, once you've done this for a while, you start to really get on top of these things. And to me, it's just normal. Oh, it's Friday. I'm gonna go dump my tanks. I'm gonna go fill my water. Oh, it's Tuesday, and I'm gonna go and refill my propane before I run out. It just becomes a fact of day-to-day life. So, another one. How do you do your laundry? Well, I do my laundry the same way millions and millions and millions of people that live in apartments and suites do their laundry. I go to the laundromat. Sure, sometimes I'll use a friend's house too. If I happen to be parked by a friend's house and they're like, hey, come on in and use my washer and dryer, I'll take advantage of that, of course. But otherwise, it's just a trip to the laundromat. No different than the way most people live anyways. Another question too I've gotten is, don't you ever feel like don't you miss having a place to go home to? Like you feel like you're homesick if you don't have a specific location to go back to every day? Absolutely not. To me, home is not a location, like a physical location. Home is a place. And whether that place moves or not is irrelevant. And I don't miss the stationary home at all. In fact, while I was living in a stationary home, I missed the mobile lifestyle. I was very homesick for this lifestyle. That's why I got back into it. I really don't like the idea of having to go back to the same place every day. I've got gypsy in my blood, I tell you, because I'm just nomadic by nature. I like to be able to look out my window in the morning. Sometimes I'll forget where I park. When I wake up in the morning, I'll forget where I am, and I open the window and I got a new view. I mean, that's awesome. It doesn't make me feel less at home. It makes me feel more at home because I'm in my little cocoon and the outside world is all around me. And there's so much of the outside world to see. Hey, so what do you think of van life?
Van life's fucking awesome. Styrofoam boxes fully